really hoping this is gonna be a 5-star. It's kind of feeling like a call that could have been an email. This is gonna turn into this video ends when I find a 5-star read. Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. This week we're going to be doing a little reading vlog with one particular goal in mind. I have realized that things have kind of slowed down on the 5-star front. I feel like I just haven't found that many 5-star reads recently. Last month in March, I had one 5-star read, and that was Lady Tan's Circle of Women, and I am just really craving that 5-star feeling right now. So this week we're going to be picking up books that I think have a really high chance of being a 5-star read. We're going to read them and we're gonna see hopefully how many 5 stars we can find. Hopefully we get a 3 out of 3 this week. We'll do our best. We'll try our best. And also this reading vlog will likely be actually a little bit more than a week or a lot more than a week because the first book we are picking up is a chunky one. I have picked up Rhythm and War by Sanderson. This is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive series if you don't count the novellas. And I'm really hoping this is going to be a 5-star. I think there's a really good chance because in this series so far, okay, not including the little novellas, but for the main books, I rated the first one, I think a 4.5. I rated the second and third ones both a 5-star. And so as we're moving into the 4th book now, I'm just feeling if we continue to follow along with this pattern, it's very likely that this book will also be a 5-star. So those are my feelings going into this one and picking this up as our first read. Hopefully we're going to start this video off strong. I think at this point all of you guys kind of know what the Stormlight Archive is about, but essentially it's an epic fantasy. We are set in a very vast fantastical world. It's war-torn, and we follow a pretty decently sized cast of characters as they basically try and find their moral paths throughout this war and all of this fantasy magic destruction stuff going on. I have really been loving how the series really highlights morality and how really choosing the right moral path and sticking to your values and moral code and all of that directly affects your power, essentially. So I think that is really, really well woven in, and because of that, we get some really, really amazing character development as the books go on. So I did pick this one up yesterday. I did get to about 140 pages in, which is nothing when you're reading a tome of this size, because this book is like almost 1,300 pages long. So I've just nibbled at the beginning. I don't have too much to say yet because we're kind of just like still getting into the story. But so far I'm really liking it. I've said this before in the prologues of the books in this series. We always start with one particular moment in time, like one scene, one night, but we'll relive the same moment through another perspective. And so going into this 4th book, the prologue of this book is the same moment that we've experienced 3 times before. Now it's our 4th time, but now we're experiencing it through another perspective that we haven't like unlocked yet. And I just feel like that is such a clever way to start a book in a series. It immediately puts you back into that moment from when you were reading the first book, like the prologue from the first book, your entry into this universe. And so it immediately gives you these nostalgia vibes because you're like, yeah, I remember this moment. It was such an intense moment that kicked off this whole journey, but you're now going into it with the lens of knowing how far your characters have gone since this moment, how much development they've done, what they've gone through, like their dynamics with each other have all changed since then. But going back to this moment just like gives you like a reminder of how far you've come, and then at the same time you're also learning something new from these moments every time you experience it, because again, you're experiencing it through another person, so obviously you're gonna get some additional insight added. It's just such a cool way to start all of these books. It's such a clever thing to think of, and so I just have to applaud Sanderson for that, honestly. But I'm gonna continue nibbling away at this gigantic beast. It's good so far. I wouldn't say it's like a 5-star so far, but it's like not a 5-star so far, you know what I mean? I think it's just too early to tell. I'm enjoying it so far. But yeah, I'm gonna continue to get through this chunker of a book, and hopefully we'll get our first 5-star for this video. such long books. And when you have a series with multiple books in that series, you start thinking, what more can we do here? And I think I was feeling hesitant to pick this one up for so long because I, number one, don't want the series to go downhill at this point for me, because the second and third books for me have been 5 stars. And I'm also like, what more can we do? Like, after the end of the third book, I was like, I understand we're going further in the story, but what can we do in these next books that introduce something actually new and add some variety into the series so it doesn't like just stay the same? And I will say, Brandon Sanderson is surprising me. He's adding so many new elements into this one. So while it feels obviously like very consistent with the Stormlight Archive and it works in the series, we are still uncovering new ground thousands and thousands and thousands of pages later. This one in particular has a lot of emphasis on mental health, and that is a prevalent theme throughout the entire series, but in this one in particular, we really like deep dive into it, into like how the brain works. We go into different types of coping mechanisms and how these different characters have been dealing with their trauma over this big, wide-spanning journey. And we're going into things that I haven't really seen in a lot of fantasy books. I think in a lot of epic fantasies like this, when you think about mental health and your protagonists and what they're going through, you generally just get like on the surface level stuff. Like, you see your characters going through trauma, you might see them shut down. It's all very like, it feels the same, but the way mental health and like coping mechanisms are manifesting in these different characters in such unique ways that like obviously reflect real world and what can happen in our brains in the real world, but now we're like putting that into this fantasy world and actually adding like a magical element on top of it is really cool, honestly, and really interesting. And I have to applaud Brandon Sanderson for the creativity and thinking of adding that stuff into this book. It really is making this one feel different than the other ones. I think this one also just has a lot more emphasis on like invention, technology, going more in depth about that and like inventing things in this magical world, which is also another fun touch. I think also the novella Dawn Shard that comes before this one kind of started introducing that theme of like, yeah, we are trying to invent things and we're gonna bring more real world elements into this fantasy world and see how these fantastical characters deal with it. Because like at the end of the day, this is very much like a medieval feeling fantasy where like there's not so much technology as we see it in our world today. There's not a lot of like accessibility and like thought put into that stuff in terms of architecture and building things. And we're seeing all of that being built in this fantastical world as we're going throughout the story, and that's just really cool to me. I am also, I didn't even tell you how far into the book I am. I'm about 500 pages into this book, so I'm under halfway still, but it's good so far. It's definitely moving slowly, I'll say that. I think these are also books that like you'll read 400 pages and you'll be like, why does it still feel like we're at the beginning of this arc? And it's because you literally are still at the beginning of that arc. But then when you think back at what's happened, like what you've read so far, what you've learned so far, there is a lot of stuff that has happened, but it's all just very much still in the stages of prep for the plot. And we're definitely not in like the high intensity moments yet, but we're like building the foundations to get there. So I'm gonna keep reading this. Fingers crossed this ends up being a 5-star, because that's the goal of this video. Guys, hello. It's a couple days later, so this reading vlog is most definitely gonna take longer than a week because I'm still working my way through this chunker. I'm just around 800 pages now, so I have what, like 450 pages left of this book, which is essentially like a full other like regular sized book remaining in this one, but I feel like I've already read 3 just in terms of like word count. Unfortunately, I don't think this is gonna be a 5-star. I mean, I haven't read to the end yet, and usually with these books the endings are the best parts, but I just think like from what I've experienced so far, I don't think I can call this a 5-star right now. It's definitely not bad. I'm still like, you know, somewhat enjoying my time with it, but I think this book is suffering from the structure. And if you're not familiar with the Stormlight Archive books, these are all essentially divided into 5 different parts, and within those 5 different parts we'll get a couple of POVs like that are switched in and out. So I don't know, you could be following like 3 to 5 POVs in part 1, and then in part 2 maybe like 1 or 2 of those POVs stick, but then the other 2 or 3 POVs change to other ones. And so sometimes it so happens that you might not see a character for like 300 pages because they might be in part 1, but they're not in part 2 and they come back in part 3. And I haven't really minded that in the previous books. In fact, I think the parts really worked in the previous books because they helped to build suspense. Like if you left a character in a pretty big predicament and didn't see them again in 300 pages, like that just adds a lot of suspense. And I found it to be kind of fun reading the story in that way in the previous books. But I feel like in this one, a lot of those things that I was saying were really interesting with mental health and all of that, those POVs have vanished. I don't know, it feels like for the past 2 parts we haven't really been seeing a lot of that stuff. Like part 1 was solid as an establisher and we were getting all of that interesting stuff that I was mentioning, but parts 2 and 3 have just been like slogging a little bit for me. I think the characters we're following are just, they're a lot more analytical, so the things that we are going through in their perspectives are not as personal feeling, not as emotional feeling, and more technical stuff. They're innovators, they're inventors, and I was having fun reading that for a little bit, but I think after like 500 pages of reading that, I'm just feeling bored a little bit, and it's feeling slow for me. Like it's cool learning about all of these things about technology in this world and inventions and stuff, but I feel like it's just getting slightly too nitty-gritty to the detail. And I feel like to enjoy a book like this, you have to be really in the mood to be like, yeah, I want to learn every single detail about how every single piece of equipment works. And I feel like if you are in the mood for that, if you are interested in that, these would be fascinating reads. But I just want to get back to those like personal emotional stories because I feel attached to those characters, and I'm like, why am I reading about these like inventions? Like, yeah, they're cool, but I want to get back to the character arcs. So that's just kind of the mood I'm in right now. I think a lot of this book honestly could have been cut down, and I would have enjoyed the invention parts of it more if they were shorter. Like it's just taking too much time to like realize, oh, that and that makes this kind of thing. It's kind of feeling like a call that could have been an email. And you know, I do love this world. I do love that Brandon Sanderson has so much fun like creating these like really strong foundations for like how everything works very technically, and I get the appeal to that, and I understand that like the majority, like so many of his readers go to these books like to get that, but I just like, it's getting to be a little bit too much for me personally. So I don't think this is a 5-star by any means. It's probably going to be closer to a 4-star depending on what happens in the last 450 pages. But I actually have purposefully blocked out a lot of time today to continue reading because I just want to like get on with it, you know? Like I just want to get back to the good part. I'm just gonna keep reading. Okay, I think we can confirm that Rhythm of War is not a 5-star for me. I did finish this one. I will say it did end up stronger than the kind of slog that was the middle part. So for me, overall, I would say part 1 of this book was great. Parts 2 and 3 were kind of where it got really slow for me, and then parts 4 and 5 were pretty good. I think part 4 was my favorite part in this book, and kind of the transition from part 3 to part 4, like at the end of part 3, I was like, okay, yeah, I can see things are getting good again. And then yeah, part 4 was really, really good for me, and then part 5 was just like good for me, which is also kind of surprising because I feel like the trend with these Brandon Sanderson books are that the last 100 or last 200 pages are going to be incredible, and I just found that this was the weakest Sanderlanche that I've read. Like it was still good, it was still, you know, there were still some really, really great moments, but all in all, even the Sanderlanche felt a little bit slow to me at parts. Like we would have a really, really great moment, and then we would like lull for another 50 pages, and then we'd have another great moment, and then we would lull again, and it was just like weird pacing, like too many just kind of like slow, quick moments for me, that it kind of broke the flow of like the exciting parts that, you know, were supposed to conclude this book. This one just really does suffer from the fact that some of the point of views were weaker than other point of views. Like some of the characters we followed in here, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about what you're going through. I like this process that we're seeing. It's creative, it's personal. I feel all of the feelings. And then there were other POVs that were a little bit more technical. And in particular, in this book, there was one specific POV where we had a lot of flashback moments. So we kind of like learned more of their history. And that's a consistent thing in these books as well, is that in every one of these books, we have multi-POV, but there's only one character that we will like jump back in time to like see their kind of backstory and their journey to get to this point. And the character that was chosen for the flashbacks in this one just didn't resonate as much with me. I was interested in learning more about this one because they definitely had a very different background and past from the previous characters that we focused on for flashbacks. But I think the execution of this one was just like, it didn't, I don't know, it lacked some of the emotional depth that I've seen in the previous books in the series. There's honestly like one point of view that we got in this book. We literally got one chapter from this character. That might have been my favorite chapter in this book. Like it was so strong, it was so well done, but we only got one of them. And I think going through this book, a lot of my thoughts were, why are we following these characters? Like, why are we not following these other secondary characters that we've been seeing through the series? But like, when will it be their moment to shine? Because I'm waiting to learn more about these specific characters, but we're not getting those ones. We're getting like other ones that I don't care about as much. I don't know. I feel like if this book was like 400 pages shorter, it probably would have been a pretty strong read. So yeah, this one was not a 5-star for me. I'm still gonna give it a 4-star. I think that rating might still be a little bit inflated. I think I just personally feel so connected to some of the characters in the series and like connected to the world and the overall story that it's hard for me to like read this book and give it a 3-star. So I think all in all, like the effect on me that this book gave to me is like a 4-star. We didn't get a 5-star on our first try this week, but I have high hopes for this next book that I'm about to pick up. It's right here in front of me, but I am about to read Daughters of the Sun and Moon by Lisa C. This is an ARC that I got. This book comes out in June. It's a historical fiction. I fell in love with Lisa C's writing last month when I read Lady Tan's Circle of Women, and so I'm so excited to read this one. Lady Tan was a clear 5-star for me, which is why I think this one has a high chance of being a 5-star. So we'll get into it. This one follows 3 women in 1870 as they arrive in Los Angeles, and I think we follow their stories as they like adapt to this new environment, see how they integrate into this like new culture and, you know, this unfamiliar land. And I'm assuming the 3 of them like are bonded and kind of like interact with each other as well, but I will give you a better synopsis once I get into this one. But here's hoping that this is going to actually be a 5-star read, because Rhythm of War unfortunately wasn't. Guys, I already love this. I do. I already love this. I am getting 5-star feelings, which is so good. Oh, I love that feeling when you dive into a book and immediately you're just like, ooh, this is gonna be good. I am about a third into this book, Daughters of the Sun and Moon, and there's just so many things I'm loving about this already. But before we can talk about those reasons why, I do actually need to actually inform you of what this book is about. So this is, as I mentioned, a historical fiction. We're set in 1870, and we follow 3 women as they move from either China or Hong Kong, or kind of like a mix of both. Some of them like go through Hong Kong, but all 3 of them end up moving to America, specifically LA, but all for very different reasons with different means. So for 3 characters, one of them is Moon, and Moon's reason for moving over is that she wants to stay beside her husband as he sets up a traditional Chinese medicinal practice in LA to serve the Chinese community, but also to sort of branch out and start serving the white community as well. So she's moved to be with her husband. Our second character is Dove. She is born into a wealthier family, so she is participating in a lot of these traditions like binding her feet, arranged marriage, all of that, and she actually gets arranged into a marriage to become a second wife to an older man woman who has moved to America already. So she set sail across the seas to meet her new husband and to get married. And our third character is Petal. And Petal has actually been sold unknowingly by her own parents, by her own family, to work in a body house in LA. This is essentially like a brothel. So she has been sold out to this brothel by her own parents because her family in China was really struggling. They're not really well off. Their crops haven't been doing well. So yeah, her parents sell her out essentially to support themselves and to support the rest of their family. And so that is Petal's story. And so we have these three women who travel over, and we see as their paths intertwine as they meet, and they come from such different backgrounds, but kind of similar to, you know, what I saw in Lady Tan's Circle of Women. We just see as these characters have this immediate sort of bond and understanding with one another. And even though they come from such different backgrounds and have such different experiences and have such different futures lying ahead of them, which are all kind of terrible, but in different ways. They're facing these different obstacles, but they just understand each other immediately in these like tiny, tiny little, almost kind of stolen moments that they have with one another, because they are kind of like so different on the hierarchy and like in society, even in the small Chinese community in LA. They're not really able to like see each other that often or communicate. They're not really allowed to do that, but they kind of find these ways to support one another in these like quieter ways. So that's the story, and this one does honestly feel like a really good continuation of Lady Tan. Not that this is a direct sequel whatsoever, it's just another historical fiction that kind of expands on the ideas that we explored in Lady Tan's Circle of Women. So Lady Tan's story was set in the 15th century, so this one is set like around 400 years later. So times are a little bit different, but we still have a lot of similar elements, like the cultural standards and the beauty standards for women are kind of still honestly the same. We still have feet binding and a lot of those restrictions on women are still present in this one, but we're kind of just expanding our view on that. I mean, it is 400 years later, so we're seeing how these things are being brought to America and kind of how, you know, being in this foreign country adds to that experience, where these women are still held to those traditional Chinese expectations, but now mixed in with an, okay, somehow we kind of have to integrate into this new society at the same time, but like we still want to uphold our old traditions, but we also kind of hate those traditions at the same time. So there's just a lot of kind of conflicting things happening. It's also really interesting seeing like the community, the small Chinese community starting up in LA, because they're obviously facing a lot of things like racism. They don't really feel like they're wanted in the States, but we're seeing as a response with the Chinese community, instead of seeing them, you know, look into each other and support each other, we're seeing them turn on each other in a lot of ways, kind of out of desperation. And so there's just like, there's honestly a lot of horrible things happening in this book, but kind of in the best educational way. The writing style is also wonderful in this book. There have been some creative choices made, which are actually really interesting and really unique to this book. So we have our three perspectives. We have Petal, Dove, and Moon. And all three of their perspectives are written in a different like perspective writing style. So Moon's chapters are all written in first person past tense, and we're kind of seeing her reflect back on the year. So her chapters are actually written in 1920, but she is thinking back to things that happened in 1870. So her chapters feel a lot more reflective, and this really suits her character because out of the three, she is the oldest character, and so she kind of has this almost motherly, nurturing kind of a relationship with the other two girls, and so seeing her story kind of being more reflective really works. We have Petal's story, which is told through first person present tense, so her chapters feel a lot more visceral, in the moment, kind of suspenseful, kind of more high action, and that really suits her arc as a girl who has been sold into a brothel. Like it's just a lot more visceral, like a lot more in the moment painful, and so I think that is working really, really strong for her. And then for Dove's chapters, hers are written in third person present tense, and because they're written in third person, for me, third person narrative always feels more like storytelling, kind of like fairy tale or like mythology kind of a thing. So I think her personal character and her journey that she's going on with being, you know, sent overseas to marry a husband that she doesn't know, who's quite a bit older than her, to become a second wife and try and, you know, navigate her own thoughts and feelings and dreams about what she thought her life would be, what she thought her marriage would be. I think the third person narrative that feels very much like, okay, it's story time, I think it really, really fits her journey. So the fact that this book is written in 3 different narrative styles really works for these 3 characters. It also really helps differentiate whose POV we're in. I think like switching POVs can either work really well in a book or can be really terrible in a book. And I think I've heard a lot of people get really frustrated when books have switching narrative styles, but I think in this case it really works because it's done so intentionally and each narrative style fits each journey just so well. And I really love how Lisa C has chosen to do that. So yeah, this is a 5-star overall. I'm only a third of the way in, so I don't want to jinx it, but so far I'm just absolutely loving this. I'm honestly like every single page I read in this book is just continuing to solidify that Lisa C is very quickly becoming one of my new favorite authors. That obviously makes me so excited. So I'm going to continue reading Daughters of the Sun and Moon, but so far this is so good. This book has taken a turn. It's taken quite a bit of a turn. It's a bit more violent than I expected. There are, a lot of horrific things happening. So if you're gonna step into this one, just a warning, there are some terrible, really, really, truly terrible things that happen to our characters. So it is quite overall a heavy read. And just like while reading through this, I am just so shocked at the book, at the plot itself, but also at myself because I feel like I didn't realize how little I knew about this time period in history, like the specific 1870s when these first like Chinese immigrants were moving over to California. Like I just had no idea about the things they were facing, the things that happened, what it was like. So yeah, a lot of that is just really shocking and surprising to me. This book is actually reminding me a lot of The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna, because in both of the books we do follow characters that are, like moving to a new place, and we see how they face resistance. We see how, the people don't really want them there. So there are kind of similarities that way. And I feel like also in terms of the pacing, it feels a little bit similar. It feels very realistic the way this book is paced. It's not entirely fast moving, but it feels real. And it probably feels real because it truly depicts, the stories of these people who were living at the time in history. But I think just like with books like this, and I said the same thing about The Four Winds, is when books feel so realistic, like I applaud them for feeling realistic, but sometimes they don't make for the most like compellingly paced read. Some parts are just a little bit slow, and I think that might just be a historical fiction thing. Like if you are a true lover of historical fiction, you might love the kind of slow, realistic pace of it because it really gives you an accurate representation of the story. That being said, I am still enjoying this. I have about 80 pages left, I think, and things are getting quite high stakes. I mean, there was always kind of an air of danger to all of our characters throughout the entire story, but it's really like pumping up now here at the end, and I'm kind of scared. I'm like, I don't really want to see what happens to them, because how about if it's really like terrible? How about if it's not a happy ending? Am I gonna be sad? Am I gonna cry? But yeah, overall, I'm still enjoying it. I am really, really still loving that narrative perspective decision, because like the more I get to know the characters, the more it makes sense. Like it makes even more sense now that we're seeing Petal in first person present tense, because she's like a really reactive in the moment type of a character, and it makes sense that we're seeing Dove in third person because she is the type of character that will kind of numb herself and turn herself off, shut down when she reacts to things. So the third person distant feeling to her story feels like, it really fits. And then with Moon, who is a much more reflective character and likes to mull over and think about things, the past tense writing style really works on her because she's thinking about things. Like it just works so naturally with all of their different personalities. So that's just, still honestly really good. There are a couple of, I would say, like copy editing issues in this, but it's an art copy, so I'm assuming all of these copy edit things are going to be fixed before the book actually comes out. I never really like hold that against an art copy when I'm reading them, because that's, kind of the whole point of an art copy. But let's just read the last 80 pages and see what happens. I'm a little scared. this was probably one of the toughest books I have ever read. Like, just truly horrifying. And it's not like the type of book that is like so just like on purpose hitting you deep in the feels. Like, you know, it's not manipulating your emotions, and so like you're not gonna see me sobbing my eyes out to a book like this, but it's more just like the mental drain and like knowing these things happened in real life and just knowing how much of this is actually based in reality about real people. I think with all of Lisa C's books, I mean, I've only read 2 so far. This is my second one, but I think it really is important to read her author's notes because she does shed a lot of light on like the real world facts that these stories are based on, and she really explains like what is real, what is fiction, who's real, who is fiction, and it's just so shocking. Like so many of her stories are about characters that were real, like they were alive, they're real humans that live, and a lot of their stories are based on real records that have been found, and so it just makes a lot of her stories even that much harder to stomach. So yeah, this was tough. It was tough, but I think it's definitely something that's important to read. It's a historical event that I think is important to know about, and honestly, again, like I just feel kind of ashamed that I didn't really know that this happened. I think it's really important that, you know, I read this book and I know the story, but that, you know, it's not an easy read. It's not. I think I'm gonna rate this a 4.25. I don't think it was a perfect book. It was a really strong book, and I'm glad. I don't want to say I'm happy that I've read it, but I'm glad that I've read it. It was really strong. I just think there were some parts to it, as I mentioned, with the pacing that kind of dragged a little bit. Like the pacing just didn't flow as smoothly as I would have wanted in a story, but everything else was so well done, so visceral. Ugh. But that's Daughters of the Sun and Moon. I might need to take the rest of the afternoon off reading just because I need to just sit in it a little bit and recover before I dive into our next read. But I'm really hoping this third read that we choose this week is going to be a 5-star, because that's like the whole point of this video. Maybe this is gonna turn into a like this video ends when I find a 5-star read, but I might be asking for trouble with this one because like I feel like my heart has felt enough this week, but I'm gonna pick up The Correspondent by Virginia Evans next. This is a book that I have wanted to read, have wanted to pick up for a while now. I've heard so many good things, but literally everyone that I've seen who has read this book has come out of it absolutely sobbing. So I don't know how my heart and my emotions are gonna fare after this one, but yeah, this is the one we're gonna get into, but I'm not gonna start this right now. I'm gonna give it at least several hours before I dive into another book. I just need to like wallow in my feelings a little bit. I guess I'll see you when I decide to read again. Good morning. Have I recovered from yesterday? That is debatable. That is debatable. My mind is still kind of like reeling from that experience, but I did recover enough to start reading The Correspondent yesterday. So I literally, the rest of my day yesterday was just sitting on the couch, either staring into space or doom scrolling. Like it was just alternating between those two for literally the entire evening. But I did, like once I got into bed, I was like, okay, I'm in a safe, cozy space now. It's time. I can pick up another book. So I did start this yesterday. I read a whopping 30 pages in bed, but I am liking this so far. So in this book, we follow Sybil. She's our main character. She is a 73-year-old woman, and we just get these little glimpses into her life through her correspondence. So the entire book is made up of just letters that she has sent to other people, some letters that she's received. So we see her writing to people like her brother, some friends, some authors. There's actually one letter that she has been continuously writing for many years but has never sent. So we'll get these kind of add-ons to that letter throughout the story as well, kind of over time. And we'll also see emails back and forth too, like with her kids. So just like all kinds of correspondence. And that's basically the entire story. And we just, yeah, get kind of glimpses, like little snippets of her life through these letters over time. And so far, honestly, it's already a pretty interesting read. I don't know if it's a 5-star yet. Like, it's literally too early to tell. But I think with just this format of seeing letter writing, it has to be done in a very particular way, because when you're just working with letters, I feel like a book can really easily fall into that category of telling and not showing. But I honestly feel like this book, with the writing style of the letters, like, it's showing me things. It's not telling me things. I think even like within the first 30 pages, I can tell a lot about Sybil's personality, because with the nature of these letters, you can tell when she's not being completely honest, even though we're not like specifically getting her like in her letters saying like, oh, I'm lying about this, I'm lying about that. There are just things that you can tell she's withholding from certain people. And it's just so interesting seeing her life through letters, because they are crafted. Like, you're not getting her true honest thoughts, you're getting her thoughts that have been, you know, thought out already and put onto paper very intentionally. And we're just getting, you know, the way she wants to be perceived by these other people. Like, we're just getting the info she wants to give. Yeah, you can already tell that she's hiding things from certain people. And you can also see what things she has come to terms with and what things that she has not come to terms with yet. And for all that to happen within the first 30 pages is pretty impressive. But I have a lot of time today to read, so I'm just gonna honestly sit here in this chair and continue reading this book. Okay, this is a book that is really hard to stop reading. I'm on page 100 now, or just past the 100-page mark, and I want to keep going. I think it's because there are no actual chapters in this book. It's literally just like letters after letters. Like, you can see there's a letter on this page, and then there's a letter on this page. And like, after you finish reading a letter, you want to keep going. Like, you want to continue to read on in these conversations. So it's really addictive in that way, which I mean is a great thing. I feel like I just want to sit in this chair this entire morning and continue reading. And also, that being said, this book is a lot more plot heavy than I was expecting. I was thinking with a book that is so just filled with letters that it would be more of just a lot of self-reflection, especially that we're following a character who is older in the years. I thought this would just be a really, really like looking back in the past, reflective memories, nostalgia kind of a book, but there's a lot of stuff happening. Like, the plot is very interesting, which is so unexpected for a story that's formatted this way. There's also just a sense of suspense kind of throughout the whole thing that I didn't expect. For one, there is like one mysterious letter sender that is sending these kind of like creepy, threatening letters, and I don't know where that's gonna go in the story, but that's definitely like a part of it. But then also, I feel like as I'm reading this, my eyeballs and my brain are doing this thing where I'm trying not to look ahead too much, because with the letter format, at the beginning of the letter, we only get the info of like the date and who the letter's being sent to, and we don't get like the from or whatever until the end of the letter. And so I feel like it'd be really easy to just like see the letter, jump to the end, see who it's from, and then read the letter. But I'm trying to not do that, and I'm trying to kind of keep myself in this almost kind of suspense of being like, wait, who is sending this letter? I'm reading the words, but who is this from? And a lot of the time, you know, after a couple sentences, you can guess who it's from just based on context. But there are honestly some moments where I'm like, I don't know who this is from, and like the context of this letter can change so much depending on who it's from once I know that. And then once I finish the letter and then see who it's from, then I'm like, oh, okay, like I see like a different meaning to these words now. And I'm finding that just to be a fun way of reading this. I would also just say, like, if you are to pick up this book, pay attention to the dates, because I was finding myself like not really paying attention to the dates for some of the letters, and then I would get to a letter and it would be like, oh, it's Christmas already. And I'd be like, how was it Christmas? Like, I thought it was still May. But there are, as you go through the book, there are some like significant time jumps between letters sometimes. So definitely just make sure you pay attention to the dates, because some letters are like months apart. And it has happened to me maybe like 2 times now where I've been like, wait, it's winter now? I thought it was summer. Anyways, I'm just gonna continue binging this. We found our 5-star. We found our 5-star. That was so good. That was so good. Oh my god. I'm kind of in shambles right now. I feel like I need to calm down. Like, I should calm down before I try and speak to you guys. But I just finished the Correspondent. Obviously, it has affected me emotionally. I just think like getting towards the end of the book, you know what's coming. You know the direction this book is going in, but it's the way it happens, the way you get there, the way it's written, the way it's presented to you, the experience of it all that really makes this so good. Like, I wouldn't say it's unpredictable. There's no like plot twists or, you know, big reveals that are like so dramatic or anything, but it's the way you can get such a close look into someone's life. And I think a lot of this book felt like kind of like those vibes, those feelings when you're a kid and you can just go to the playground and see someone for the first time, go up to them and just say hi, and immediately you're best friends. I feel like Sybil as a character kind of showed how that can still be a thing, but through letters and in adulthood instead. Like, she would just send these letters to random people and start these sort of like pen pal relationships, and they would become like such deep, close, like actually close friends, even though like she, you know, has never met this person. There's just like a little sense of innocence in that, and I really enjoyed that. And then yeah, by the end I felt so close to all of these characters. It almost feels like these characters are real, and I feel the urge to continue to keep tabs with them even after the story is over. Like, I want to see how everyone is doing. I want to sit down and write a letter to everyone that was featured in this book. That was so incredibly well done. Like, so well done. You know a book that is made up of letters is going to be good, but it can either be good or it can be like really, really incredible. And this was really, really incredible. So it does deserve all the hype. I'm very emotional. I'm gonna end this video here. And I'm so glad that we actually ended up this video with a 5-star read. That brings us to the end of this video, so I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what your last 5-star read was. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!